My boss linked me to a Symbiont AI 10x multiplier system. When I worked hard, he got a tenfold bonus. When I busted my ass at the gym, he got 10 times the health benefits. I was living like a monk while he was out partying every night, getting healthier and healthier. My girlfriend, Chloe Reed, was his most valuable accomplice. She wrapped the deadliest poison in a sugar coating of love, supervising me as I quit smoking, drinking, and every other bad habit. It was all to make my life force purer, so he could siphon it off more efficiently. Right before I died, they stood over my hospital bed, admiring me like a trophy they'd won, and smilingly told me the whole truth. Leo, thanks for all your hard work this year. It's given me a perfect bill of health and more money than I can spend. Oh, and by the way, I bought Chloe with a fraction of that money a long time ago. The joke's on you, pal. As their shrill laughter echoed in my ears, I died, filled with a bottomless, raging hatred. But I never expected to be reborn. This time, looking at my own strong, healthy body in the mirror, I smiled. Donovan Pierce. Chloe Reed, you were so afraid of me feeling good, weren't you? You wanted me to be some kind of passionless saint? Well, you ready? Game on. This time, I'm going to show you what it really means to have a goddamn blast. My name is Leo Hayes. I was 26 years old, and I died in a meticulously planned murder. When the cold hum of the monitor flatlined, officially declaring the end of my life, I was lying on a stark white bed in the ICU of City General Hospital. Tubes snaked in my body from every direction, each one a parasitic vine greedily draining what was left of me. Multiple organ failure. That was the diagnosis the doctors gave, a conclusion that left them completely baffled. They didn't know that my body, the health I had taken such pride in, along with my career, my love, and my future, were all just sacrifices for a devil. And the two devils were standing at my bedside right now. My direct supervisor, Donovan Pierce, and the woman I had loved so deeply, the woman I thought I'd spend the rest of my life with, Chloe Reed. Donovan was dressed in a perfectly tailored Armani suit, his hair slicked back without a single strand out of place. He wore a look of sympathetic pity, but his deep-set eyes glittered with the irrepressible ecstasy of a victor. He was an artist admiring his masterpiece, and I was the lump of clay he was about to grind into the floor. Leo, it's such a shame, he began, his voice smooth as silk but colder than a polar vortex. You were the hardest-working, most talented young man I've ever met. Honestly, I really admired you. With every ounce of strength I had left, I strained to turn my eyes toward Chloe. She was wearing a Chanel dress I'd never seen before, a brilliant diamond necklace gracing her throat, and she was nestled against Donovan's side like a pampered pet. Her eyes, the same eyes that had once gazed at me with such tenderness while pushing me to work out or preparing my healthy meals, were now cold and dismissive. They held a condescending pity, the way you'd look at an ant just before crushing it. My brain, like a computer hit with a virus, crashed. Countless moments flashed before my eyes, chaotic and sharp. A year ago, Donovan had descended upon our stagnant R&D department like a corporate savior. Young, accomplished with a golden resume, he immediately demonstrated extraordinary charisma and skill. He quickly noticed me, the quiet tech nerd who just kept his head down and worked, and took me under his wing. Leo, I'm giving you this project. I have faith in your abilities, he'd say, clapping me on the shoulder as he handed me the easiest, shortest-term projects with the highest returns. I skyrocketed through the company ranks, becoming a key technical lead in the department at a young age, my bonuses fat and frequent. I saw him as the greatest mentor of my life, a true friend I would have done anything for. And Chloe, I met her at the company's annual holiday party. She was the undisputed queen of the administrative department, beautiful, gentle, and smart. She was a ray of light that illuminated my monotonous work-home-work existence. Our love became the fuel for all my ambitions. She would gently pluck a freshly lit cigarette from my lips, her lovely brow furrowed in concern. Leo, promise me you'll quit. Please, I want you to be healthy and by my side for a long, long time. She would drag my exhausted body to the gym after work, laying out a detailed fitness plan. Look at you sitting all day. Your back and neck are going to be a mess. No, we have to get you in shape. A healthy body is the foundation of our future, she'd say earnestly while helping me stretch. She vetoed all my takeout and junk food, insisting on preparing 3 perfectly balanced meals for me every day. Boiled chicken breast, broccoli, brown rice. That bland, flavorless food somehow tasted delicious when seasoned with her love. Under her guidance, I became a man of terrifying self-discipline. I didn't smoke, didn't drink, never stayed up late, and worked out daily, keeping my body fat percentage under 12%. My career was soaring, my income was great, my body was in peak condition, and I had the love of my life. I thought I had reached the pinnacle of happiness. My life was a perfect, inspirational romantic comedy. It wasn't until today that I finally woke up. I was the star of a horror movie, and I was the only one who hadn't read the script. Why? I forced the word from my throat with the last of my strength, my voice as ragged as sandpaper. Donovan smiled, a broad, charming grin that looked utterly monstrous on his face. Why? Because you're the perfect host, Leo, he said, as if sharing a trade secret, his tone dripping with pride. Did you know that on my first day here, I used a special channel to bind a revolutionary piece of tech to you? The Symbiont AI multiplier system. The system's principle is very simple and very cruel. He paused, clearly savoring my despair. For any positive gain you acquire, I receive a tenfold return. For example, you work overtime to finish a project and get a $1,000 bonus. $10,000 instantly appears in my personal account. You thought those easy, high-paying projects were a sign of my faith in you. Haha, you idiot. It was because your output efficiency was the highest. I just had to flap my gums a little, and you're on the front lines, killing yourself to make money for me. You were my best and cheapest employee. My heart felt like it was being crushed by a poisoned iron fist. The suffocating pain sent my body into spasms. My gaze remained locked on Chloe's face. And you, Chloe, you. Chloe finally spoke, her voice still sweet, but now with a cold, metallic edge. Leo, I'll admit, in the beginning, I might have liked you a little. You were honest, hard-working, ambitious. A decent prospect for marriage. She flicked her wrist, showing off a Patek Philippe watch I'd never seen, crusted in pink diamonds. A mocking smile touched her lips. But Donovan, you just offered so much more. You could work for 10 years and not afford a single screw in this watch. Reality is cruel, Leo. Hard work and love just aren't enough. So, you making me quit smoking, making me work out. It was all. My voice trembled. That's right. Donovan cut in, his smile growing wider, crazier. It was all for me. The most beautiful part of this system is the life force multiplier. The way you lived like a monk, giving up every vice, painstakingly building this athlete's body. All the vital energy it contained was continuously transferred to me tenfold. He proudly slapped his own solid chest, his face glowing with a healthy, vibrant sheen. Look at me. I smoke cigars, drink vintage wine, party all night. I live a completely degenerate lifestyle, but my body just keeps getting better. I don't even catch colds. And you, look at the state you're in. I owe it all to you, my dear host. Your life nourished mine. Your hard work built my fortune. And your precious love? That was just a beautiful trap I set to keep you in your cage. Ha 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 ha. Donovan's unrestrained laughter and Chloe's cold stare were 2 razor-sharp knives, carving up my already shredded heart. So that was it. My prized self-discipline was nothing more than a tool for someone else. My sweat watered my enemy's garden. My health sustained my enemy's life. My treasured love was just an elaborate, year-long scam. I was a fool, a complete and utter, hopeless fool. Amid their piercing laughter, drowning in endless regret and a tidal wave of hatred, the last fluctuating green line on the heart monitor finally stretched into a cold, flat line of death. I was dead, but the story was just beginning. Consciousness was violently dragged back from an endless, freezing darkness. Beep, 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 beep. The shrill sound of an alarm clock drilled into my eardrums. I shot up in bed, gasping for air, my body drenched in a cold sweat. My t-shirt clung to my back, damp and icy. My heart hammered against my ribs, as if trying to break free. The sterile smell of the ICU, Donovan's smug face, Chloe's icy glare, it was all branded onto my mind. Wait, this wasn't the ICU. I looked around at the familiar surroundings. The one-piece poster on the wall, the desk piled high with programming books, the worn-out gaming chair I'd spent countless hours in. This was my apartment. Sunlight streamed through the window, and I could even smell the coffee and bagel from the cafe downstairs. Everything felt so alive. I instinctively placed a hand on my chest, feeling the strong, steady beat of my own heart. I threw off the covers and looked down at my body. The faint outline of abs, strong arms. I was filled with a vibrant energy. This was me at my physical peak. I scrambled out of bed and stumbled over to my desk, grabbing my phone. The screen lit up, displaying a date and time that made my pupils constrict and my breath catch in my throat. September 1st, 2024. Exactly 3 months to the day before my death in my previous life. The day marked as the 1-year system anniversary, my sacrifice day. I was reborn. The thought exploded in my chaotic mind like a bolt of lightning. A massive, indescribable wave of euphoria washed over me. I was alive. I was really alive. It was immediately followed by a torrential flood of hatred that drowned my reason. Donovan Pierce, Chloe Reed, you goddamn monsters. Last time, you played me like a fiddle, treated me like a workhorse to be bled dry, and then tossed me aside like trash. This time, Leo Hayes is back. I will make you pay for what you did. I will return every ounce of pain and humiliation you inflicted on me 100, 1,000 times over. Calm down, Leo, calm down. I rushed into the bathroom, turned on the faucet, and splashed cold water on my face again and again. The icy shock slowly brought me back from the brink of rage. I looked at my reflection, my face flushed with emotion, my eyes burning with the fires of revenge. I couldn't be reckless. There were still 3 months until the final harvest. Donovan's dam system was still bound to me. My every move would still affect him. If I stormed over there to kill him now, I wouldn't succeed. I'd only tip him off and likely end up exactly where I was before. I had to be patient. I had a plan. The first step of my revenge, I decided, was to start slacking. If my hard work gave him 10 times the bonus and my workouts gave him 10 times the health, then what if I did the opposite? What if I stopped giving a damn? I'd show up late, leave early, screw around all day, and sabotage projects. Let's see how wide a smile is then. I'd give him a taste of tanking performance and office gossip. The next day, I intentionally turned off all my alarms and slept in. By the time I leisurely strolled into the office and clocked in, it was almost lunchtime. My coworkers stared at me in disbelief. In their minds, Leo Hayes was more punctual than the atomic clock. Forgetting lateness, I never even left a minute early. My team lead, Mike, saw me, his jaw dropping. Leo, you okay? I thought you called in sick. No, Mike, just overslept, I said with a lazy yawn. It didn't take long for Donovan to summon me to his spacious, sunlit office. I smirked inwardly, a whole sob story prepared. But to my surprise, there wasn't a trace of anger on his face. Instead, he looked concerned, pouring me a cup of hot tea. Leo, have a seat, he said, pushing the cup toward me, his tone as warm as a trusted mentor's. Have you been under a lot of pressure lately? You don't look so good. It's all right, we all have our ups and downs. Health is the most important thing. Don't push yourself so hard at work. A string pulled too tight will snap. I was stunned. This guy's acting. He deserved an Oscar. He was probably fantasizing about me working myself to death. But his words were pure honey. Thanks for the concern, Mr. Pierce. I've just been a little burnt out, I said, lowering my head, playing the part of an overstressed model employee. Burnout is a sign of progress, he nodded, satisfied. Tell you what, head home early this afternoon. Consider a personal day for me. Don't worry about the project. I've got it covered. In the following days, I escalated my slacking campaign. During meetings, I openly wore headphones and zoned out. When I was supposed to be coding, I was secretly playing games on my phone. The tasks Mike assigned me, I procrastinated on endlessly, eventually turning in buggy, useless garbage. The entire department was looking at me sideways. Mike tried to talk to me a few times, but I brushed him off with excuses about not feeling it in creative blocks. Yet, not only did Donovan not reprimand me, he once again displayed his compassionate leadership. At a department meeting, he announced publicly, Leo has been a tremendous asset to this department, a true hero for us this past year. He may be going through a rough patch, feeling the pressure, and I hope everyone can show him some understanding and support. Then, with a grand gesture, he assigned 2 new interns to me, this hero. He called it forming a core task force led by Leo. In reality, it was just getting 2 interns to do all my work for me. The most insane thing happened at the end of the month. The bonus for the project that those 2 interns had poured their blood, sweat, and tears into was deposited, in full, into my bank account. Chase Bank, a deposit of $3,000,000 was made to your checking account XXXX on September 30th at 3:32 p.m. Your new balance is $XXXXX. I stared at the text message on my phone, a chill running up my spine. I could almost see it. At the exact moment I received that $30,000 had silently appeared in one of Donovan's hidden accounts. He didn't even need me to lift a finger anymore, as long as the credit and the bonus were under my name. Now, the way my coworkers looked at me changed completely. The initial shock turned into naked contempt, jealousy, and ostracism. Look at that Leo Hayes. Thinks he's hot stuff? Sucking up to the boss has really gone to his head. I heard them whispering in the break room as I walked by. Seriously, he makes those 2 poor interns do all the work while he plays games all day, and he still gets the bonus. The nerve of that guy is unbelievable. He's just a suck-up. God knows what he did to get on Donovan's good side. He's poison to the whole department. The rumors were like invisible knives stabbing at me. I was under immense mental stress, feeling anxious, irritable, even starting to doubt myself. I began to suffer from insomnia, staring at the ceiling all night, trying to figure a way out of this dead end. I even had the vicious thought that maybe, just maybe, my anxiety and pain could be multiplied tenfold and sent to Donovan, giving him a taste of this living hell. But again, I was disappointed. Donovan remained as radiant and successful as ever. He started driving a new Porsche 911 to work, the watch on his wrist upgraded to an even more extravagant Richard Mille. He would look at me with that same concerned expression, as if to say, "Go on, be anxious, suffer. Your struggles mean nothing to me." Why? Could it be that this damn system only multiplied the good and not the bad? It could replicate my money and my life force, but not my pain and suffering. I refused to believe it. That night, alone in my empty apartment, my frustration and despair grew. A wicked fire of anger and injustice surged through me. I paced my room like a caged animal. Why, after being given a second chance, was I still being toyed with like this? I stormed into the kitchen, yanked open a drawer, and grabbed a sharp paring knife. The blade glinted coldly under the light. I stared at my left arm, a single, crazy thought consuming me. If mental anguish doesn't transfer, what about physical pain? I refuse to believe I can cut myself to ribbons and he'll walk away without a scratch. I closed my eyes, clenched my jaw, and slashed the knife across my own arm. Hiss! A sharp, searing pain shot up my arm to my brain. Warm blood immediately welled up from the cut, dripping down my arm and onto the floor, blooming into dark red flowers. I didn't bandage it. I just stared at the ugly wound, feeling the waves of pain. I screamed in my head, "Donovan, take it, 10 times the pain. You feel it too." The next day, I went to work extra early. I wore a long-sleeved shirt to hide the wound and lurked in a corner near the break room, a predator waiting for its prey. At 8:50 a.m., he arrived. Donovan, in a crisp gray suit, hair perfectly coiffed, strode confidently out of the elevator, a Starbucks Americano in hand. He was refreshed and glowing, even smiling and nodding at colleagues who greeted him. When his gaze passed over me, he even offered a concerned smile. There wasn't a single sign of injury on him, not a single awkward movement. In that moment, my heart sank into a bottomless abyss. Slacking didn't work. Self-harm didn't work. Was I destined, even after being reborn, to be nothing more than a battery for someone else? Was I doomed to end up just like last time, a nutrient source for him, discarded like trash after he had achieved fame, fortune, and a girl? A crushing sense of powerlessness and bone-deep despair washed over me, a freezing current from the deep sea suffocating me. Just as I was about to be swallowed by that despair, a familiar figure appeared before me, holding a cup of hot milk. It was Chloe. She was wearing a tasteful business suit, her makeup subtle and elegant. She sat down next to my desk, her voice laced with its usual soul-melting tenderness. Leo, what's wrong? You seem so down lately. Your dark circles are practically down to your chin. She pushed the hot milk toward me. Is it work stress? Don't put so much pressure on yourself. How about we take this weekend off, go to that spa resort up in the mountains, and just relax? Or I could go with you to the gym tonight. A good sweat session always helps clear out the negative energy. There was again that same damn manipulative PUA script. She was trying to use these sugar-coated bullets of "it's for your own good" to lure me back onto that disciplined, self-sacrificing path that benefited her and Donovan. Looking at her smiling face, the rage, grievance, and despair in my heart instantly converged into a volcanic eruption. Stress, anxiety, wasn't it all because of you two bastards? I shot to my feet, and, under Chloe's stunned gaze, I walked out of the office without a word. A few minutes later, I returned with something in my hand. A brand new pack of American Spirits and a lighter. It was the first time I'd bought cigarettes since my rebirth. Right in front of her, and in front of every coworker pretending to work, but actually listening in, I expertly tore the cellophane off the pack, tapped one out, and stuck it between my lips. Click! The flame shot up, igniting the tobacco. I took a deep, long drag. The familiar, acrid smoke filled my mouth and lungs, making me cough violently. But what followed was the long-lost, indulgent head rush of nicotine. In that instant, all the stress and anxiety seemed to vanish with the exhaled smoke. Damn, that felt good. Chloe's reaction, however, was 100 times more extreme than I'd anticipated. Her face changed in a flash, her beautiful features twisting in shock and rage. She shot up like a cat whose tail had been stepped on, lunged at me, snatched the cigarette I'd barely smoked from my lips, and threw it to the ground. Then, she hysterically ground it into the carpet with her stiletto heel. "Leo, are you insane?" she shrieked, her voice shrill and laced with an undeniable panic. "You promised me you quit. Why are you smoking again? Do you have any idea how bad that is for you?" Her reaction, it was too strange. She always knew I hated the gym, hated her bland health food, and even resented her rules against staying up late to play video games. But in the past, no matter how much I resisted, she always used a gentle, persuasive tone to guide me. But with smoking, her reaction was this intense, this out of control. It was as if I wasn't smoking a cigarette, but draining her lifeblood. I watched her body tremble with agitation, her eyes wide with terror and panic. A wild, audacious, earth-shattering idea, like a flash of lightning in the dark, instantly illuminated my clouded mind. I got it. I fucking got it. I looked at her and suddenly started to laugh. I covered my mouth, my shoulders shaking, until I couldn't hold it in anymore. I roared with laughter, laughing so hard that tears streamed down my face. The entire office was baffled by my sudden outburst, everyone exchanging confused glances. My laughter seemed to unnerve Chloe. She took a step back, trying to compose herself. "Leo, don't be like this. You're scaring me. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have yelled at you. I really am just looking out for you." "Looking out for me?" I stopped laughing and wiped the tears from my eyes, but the smile on my face turned ice cold. "Or are you looking out for Donovan?" Boom. The words hit her like a bomb. Her face instantly turned ghostly white. Her pupils contracted violently, and she swayed on her feet as if she'd just heard the world's most terrible secret. Chloe's body trembled. Her lips quivered, unable to form a single word. What are you talking about?" I don't understand," she stammered, her eyes darting around, her guilt so obvious it was comical. "You don't understand?" I took a step closer, lowering my voice, so only we could hear a sound that seemed to crawl up from the depths of hell. "Go back and tell your precious Donovan that his good times are over." Without another glance at her blood-drained face, I turned and walked away. Under the stunned, shocked, and gossipy gazes of the entire office, I strode out the door. Behind me, I could faintly hear her panicked, tearful cries, "Leo, Leo, come back." I didn't look back. In that moment, I felt like a prisoner who had just broken free from all his chains, filled with an unprecedented sense of power. The next day, I ran into Donovan in the elevator. Something was off about him. Usually so vibrant, today he had faint dark circles under his eyes, as if he hadn't slept well. It was just the two of us, and I could clearly hear him let out a suppressed, wheezing cough now and then, a familiar phlegmy rattle in his throat like a lifelong smoker first thing in the morning. He saw me and forced a smile, but it was strained with an almost imperceptible fatigue. Seeing him like that, the lightning bolt of an idea that had struck me earlier now lit up my entire world. Ha ha ha, so that's how it works. So that's it. I had finally found the damn system's kill switch. This so-called Symbiont AI multiplier system didn't replicate what I did, good or bad. It didn't care if I gained money or lost health. It replicated my genuine, internal feeling while doing the action, whether I felt a sense of satisfaction, a feeling of pleasure. When I forced myself to work out, my muscles tearing, sweat pouring down my face, I felt pain and resistance. So all he got was the numerical life force value from the exercise, without any of the physical exhaustion or soreness. When I cut myself with a knife, I was filled with anguish and despair, doing it only to test him. So he felt nothing. When I was slacking, anxious, and sleep-deprived, my inner state was one of frustration and stress. So he remained untouched, coasting on his good fortune. But smoking, even though my rational mind knew it was harmful, in that moment of pure release after being suppressed for so long. When I lit that cigarette and took that first deep drag, my soul felt liberated. It felt good. Therefore, the negative physiological effects of that good feeling, the coughing, the throat irritation, the damage to the lungs, were precisely and tenfold replicated in him. No wonder Chloe never let me touch her in the entire year we were dating. Even kissing was just a light peck on the lips. It wasn't because she was chaste. She was terrified of me feeling good. She was afraid that one moment of pleasure for me would mean a catastrophic meltdown for Donovan. No wonder she forbade all my so-called bad habits, staying up late playing video games, drinking beer with friends, going out for wings and pizza. Everything that brought a normal guy joy and relaxation, she had systematically stripped away under the guise of it's for your own good, and it's unhealthy. She was methodically castrating my sources of pleasure to ensure Donovan could safely and comfortably enjoy the tenfold rewards. Ha! I almost burst out laughing right there in the elevator. Donovan Pierce, Chloe Reed, you two conniving bastards. You went to such great lengths to suppress my nature and kill my desires. Also, you could suck my blood and feast on my flesh without a care in the world. Well now, the rules of the game are about to change. Since you're so afraid of me having a good time, then I'm going to make damn sure you have a good time with me. Having discovered the system's true user manual, the whole world seemed to burst into vibrant color. The flames of vengeance roared in my chest, yet my mind was clearer and calmer than ever. The board was reset, and now it was the pawn's turn to move the pieces. My plan for revenge officially began. Step 1. Smoking. I dropped all pretense. A pack of American Spirits and a nice Zippo lighter became permanent fixtures on my desk. When I felt tired from work, I'd head downstairs for a smoke. When I hit a mental block, I'd go for another. I even started to become a connoisseur, trying different brands, appreciating the subtle nuances. As I watched the smoke curl from my fingertips, I felt the brief, blissful numbness of nicotine. And with every puff, I would silently say to Donovan, "Hey buddy, feeling good again over here. How's it going on your end?" Donovan's condition deteriorated at a visible rate. He started coughing frequently and violently. During meetings, he'd often be unable to finish a sentence without breaking into a coughing fit, his face turning beet red, leaving even the top executives shooting him looks of annoyance. His complexion shifted from a healthy tan to a sallow, sickly yellow. But he had incredible endurance. He knew he only had to hold out for less than 3 months until the final harvest. Once he got through this, he could take the massive fortune and peak health I had accumulated for him and disappear to enjoy his life. So, not only did he not get angry with me, he actually doubled down on his caring approach. Leo, he called me into his office, forcing back the tickle in his throat to give me his fake sincere advice. "Is something on your mind lately? I see you're smoking more and more. That's not good for you, you know. You're young. You have to take care of your body. How about this? I'll approve a long vacation for you. You and Chloe can go on a trip, clear your head." I sneered internally, but put on a look of a heartbroken man. "We broke up," I said listlessly. "Broke up?" He was clearly taken aback, a flash of barely perceptible joy crossing his eyes before he masked it with a look of shock and sympathy. What happened? Just a little fight. Oh, you can't let that happen. Chloe is such a wonderful girl. You have to cherish her. Did you neglect her because you've been feeling down? Listen to me. Man up, go apologize, and win her back. I couldn't be bothered to continue the act. I just waved my hand dismissively, and right in front of him, I lit another cigarette. I took a deep drag, and then slowly, deliberately, exhaled a thick cloud of smoke in his direction. The corner of his eye twitched violently. A few days later, an even bigger bombshell dropped, sending shockwaves through the entire company. Donovan and Chloe were getting married. They sent out digital invitations with lightning speed. The wedding was set for next month. The office was buzzing. The way my coworkers looked at me grew even more complicated. There was pity, sympathy, but mostly a sense of schadenfreude and disdain. In their eyes, Leo Hayes was the pathetic chump whose girlfriend got stolen by his boss, the poor fool who was now the office joke, the ultimate cuckold. I looked at the elegantly designed, gold-trimmed EV on my phone and felt nothing but the urge to laugh. I knew what this was. It was a power play, a way to force me back into line. They were afraid of me truly cutting ties with Chloe and breaking free from their control. They were using this wedding to send a message. See? Your woman is mine now. If you want her to be nice to you again, you'll get back to being the disciplined little drone you were before. How pathetic. Unfortunately for them, they had made a serious miscalculation. Just smoking wasn't going to be enough to completely destroy him in under 3 months. Although he was suffering from a tenfold nicotine assault every day, he was clearly toughing it out. I needed to up the intensity. That night, I lay in bed tossing and turning. I cataloged my options. Besides smoking, what other activities could give me a genuine sense of pleasure while also having a significant negative impact on the body? Drinking? Absolutely. The kind that ends in a blackout. Staying up all night? Perfect. All-night gaming sessions. Watching the sunrise before finally crashing. Junk food? Bring it on. Hot wings, greasy pizza, late-night tacos. The unhealthier the better. But all these conventional methods still felt too slow, too indirect. I needed something more powerful, more sustainable, a truly devastating source of pleasure, a weapon of mass destruction. Suddenly, a thought I had long suppressed, one that was almost embarrassing to admit, streaked across my mind like a shooting star, quickly becoming sharp and brilliant. Of course, I was a 26-year-old, red-blooded single man with perfectly normal biological functions. Before my rebirth, Chloe had kept me on the tightest of leashes. Forget sex, even a real kiss was a rare treat. Her excuse was always that we needed to be responsible for our future, not indulge in fleeting pleasures. Looking back, it was clear she was just terrified of me feeling good. But now, I was reborn, I had broken up with her, and I was gloriously single again. So, some things. A man just had to take matters into his own hands, right? Besides, as the old saying goes, a little self-love is fine, a lot is draining, but a truly heroic amount leads to total annihilation. I could already picture Donovan's handsome face under my diligent efforts, gradually becoming gaunt and withered, until he finally just faded away. A brilliant, if slightly perverted, plan rapidly took shape in my mind. I gave this plan a powerful and hopeful name, Project Liftoff. The next morning, sunlight filtering through the blinds woke me. I didn't get up right away. Instead, I lay comfortably in bed, opened my phone, and navigated to a certain website. Then I slowly extended my diligent right hand. Good morning, world. Another beautiful day. Let us greet the dawn and prepare for liftoff. About 10 minutes later, after a thoroughly satisfying shudder, I contentedly walked into the bathroom for a hot shower. I felt spiritually elevated, my mind and body completely refreshed. I arrived at the office feeling fantastic and made a point to stroll past Donovan's office. It was just as I'd expected. His dark circles were even more pronounced than yesterday, like he'd gone a few rounds in a boxing ring. He walked with a strange stiffness, his legs seeming to move like they were made of cotton, a little weak and looking, a bit like he couldn't quite close them. When he saw me, he managed a smile that was uglier than a grimace. Morning, Leo, he rasped. Morning, Mr. Pierce. I replied, my voice booming with energy. You look, didn't sleep well last night? You seem a little off. His lips twitched visibly, a flicker of terror and exhaustion in his eyes. And no, I'm fine. Just had a nightmare. I was ecstatic. A nightmare. More like a tenfold intensity. 4K Ultra HD, fully immersive VR wet dream. That night, before going to sleep, I decided to piously execute Project Liftoff once again to ensure a deep and restful slumber. Good night, you cruel world. May my dreams be sweet. Let us soar once more into the dreamscape. Another satisfying conclusion. And so, I began a routine as regular as eating and drinking, a healthy, twice-a-day liftoff schedule. Wake up in the morning, ready to face the day, feeling good. Time for liftoff. Going to bed at night. Need to promote deep sleep. An A for slumber. Time for liftoff. After just 3 days, Donovan's appearance had shockingly and rapidly deteriorated. His eye sockets were sunken, his eyeballs webbed with red veins. His once handsome face was now pale and puffy, his lips chapped and peeling. He had to steady himself against the wall when he walked, as if a strong gust of wind could knock him over. During presentations, the laser pointer in his hand trembled like he had late-stage Parkinson's, and he couldn't even keep it steady on the words on the screen. Several times, he would trail off mid-sentence, his eyes glazing over as he stared into space. The entire department noticed something was terribly wrong. The rumor mill went into overdrive. What's up with Donovan? He looks like a ghost sucked the life out of him. I heard he's getting married soon. You know, young guys, full of fire. Understandable, understandable. Understandable my ass. Look at him. That's not a wedding glow. That's a death sentence. That afternoon, he finally broke. He called me into his office and shakily closed the door. He tried to pour me a glass of water, his hand trembling so badly that half of it sloshed onto the desk. Leo, he began, his voice hoarse and weak, his eyes bloodshot and pleading. I know I wronged you. Stealing Chloe. That was my fault. I was a bastard. I apologize. He was actually apologizing to me. I laughed coldly to myself. It seemed my 1-2 combo of Project Liftoff had beaten him to the brink of spiritual collapse. But work is work, and personal is personal, right? He said, panting for breath. You're a talented guy. You can't just throw it all away like this. Look, this is the new media promotion project for the Southside Development. Huge potential, big commission. The planning department has already done all the grunt work. All that's left is the final integration and launch. You just have to go in and pluck the fruit. I've already cleared it with the higher-ups. This project is all yours to finish, and the bonus. We'll be very, very generous. He pulled a thick file from his drawer and pushed it toward me. Another one of these free money handouts. Did he really think he could buy me off, make me stop this suicide attack? Mr. Pierce, I'm done, I said, looking at his drained, pathetic face. I want to quit. No. He practically screamed the word, then quickly realized his outburst and softened his tone, almost begging me. Leo, listen to me. The company needs you. I need you. You can't leave. You absolutely cannot leave. He knew that even if I left, as long as the system was bound, he could still pull strings to funnel money and credit to my name, and he'd still get his tenfold return. But if I left, I would be completely out of his sight and control. He was terrified of what other insane, pleasurable activities I might get up to that he couldn't handle. He physically pushed me back down into the chair, leaning over the desk with both hands, his eyes locked on me like I was his last hope for survival. Leo, I'm begging you, okay? Just stay with the company. Whatever you want, I'll give it to you. A raise? A promotion? Done. Just please stop torturing yourself like this, all right? Looking at his broken state, I felt a wave of pure, unadulterated bliss. Torture myself? Buddy, you have no idea. I'm just starting to enjoy my life. In the end, I reluctantly accepted the golden opportunity he offered, but now I had found the ultimate weapon against him, and I decided it was time for an upgrade. I began to indulge myself with abandon. Nighttime was no longer just for simple liftoffs. I started going out with friends to bars, to karaoke lounges, screaming songs until dawn. I'd sleep it off on my desk during the day, wake up for a smoke break, and take care of my daily liftoff KPIs in the luxurious executive bathroom. To any outsider, My life had become degenerate, decadent, and hopeless. But my spirit was soaring, because I knew that every single second of my degeneration was another poison-tipped bullet aimed straight at Donovan's heart. His body was collapsing at a terrifying speed. I heard he was starting to experience auditory and visual hallucinations. In one meeting, he apparently jumped to his feet and started screaming at an empty corner of the room, yelling about ghosts chasing him. Chloe came to see me a few times. She was no longer a goddess looking down from on high, but a haggard, tear-stained wreck. She begged me to let Donovan go. She even said she was willing to call off the wedding, leave him, and come back to me. I looked at her deceitful face and found it utterly pathetic and disgusting. Too little, too late. You want to turn back now? Not a chance. Donovan was on the verge of being completely broken by my games. But it wasn't enough. Not nearly enough. On the eve of his and Chloe's grand wedding, I decided to give him a wedding gift they would never, ever forget. A gift that would nail them to a pillar of shame for all eternity. I was raised by my grandfather. My grandpa was a farmer through and through and a die-hard smoker. But he never touched the fancy, store-bought cigarettes. He only smoked the tobacco he grew himself in the fields, cured and dried with his own 2 hands. I can still clearly remember those summer evenings. Grandpa would sit on a small stool under the old locust tree in our yard. He'd slowly pull a few leathery, dark brown leaves from a faded blue cloth pouch. With his rough, calloused, soil-stained fingers, he would carefully, meticulously, roll the tobacco into a thick, long cigarette. Then he'd strike a match, light it up, and take a few deep puffs. The potent, pungent smoke would fill the yard as he squinted his eyes in pure bliss, as if it were the most delicious thing on earth. As a kid, I was always curious. I tried to sneak a puff a few times, but he always caught me and gave me a light swat on the behind. "This ain't for kids. It'll choke you good," he'd say with a laugh. I grew up, left my hometown for college and work. Then, Grandpa passed away. I never had the chance to touch that raw, wild, old-school tobacco again. Now, I thought the time was right. It was time to satisfy my childhood curiosity and, at the same time, present my dear boss, Donovan, with an unprecedented gift. I took a couple of days off and drove back to my old hometown. After some searching, I managed to get a big bag of prime, 3-year-aged, home-cured tobacco from a distant cousin. The leaves were a deep, oily brown, each one emitting a rich, aggressive, almost overwhelming aroma. Back in my small apartment, I locked the door and drew the curtains, feeling like an alchemist about to perform a sacred ritual. Following my memory of Grandpa, I tore the oily leaves apart and spread them evenly over a large sheet of thick rolling paper. Then, carefully, I began to roll it up tightly from one end. My goal was to create a one-of-a-kind masterpiece, a weapon of mass destruction that would go down in history. After more than an hour of painstaking work, a super cigar of unprecedented scale was born. It was as long as my forearm and as thick as my water bottle. It was less a cigarette and more of a dark brown staff, or, to use a more fitting term, a nuke. I held the nuke in my hands, admiring it. As I inhaled its raw, wild, and aggressive scent, my mouth began to water. I could already picture Donovan's handsome face, under the system's influence, blooming into a twisted, spectacular flower after inhaling a 10-fold dose of this nuke. I could already hear the beautiful screams of his soul being blasted into the next dimension. The company was holding its third-quarter review. It was the most important meeting of the year. The entire C-suite, including the chairman who was rarely seen, was in attendance. And Donovan, as the year's star performer and most favored executive, was scheduled to be the first presenter. By the time I arrived, he was already at the podium in his suit, preparing. He was wearing an expensive, custom-tailored suit, his hair slicked back with gel, trying to use his appearance to mask his extreme exhaustion. It was a futile effort. His sunken eyes, his pale and puffy face, and the slight, uncontrollable tremor in his legs as he stood there all silently testified to the blissful life he'd been leading. He looked exactly like a man who'd had his life force drained by a succubus, a walking corpse. The chairman, sitting front and center, was already frowning slightly, clearly displeased with the state of his once prized protege. It was showtime. I found an inconspicuous seat in the back, propped my phone against my water glass, angled the camera perfectly at the stage, and quietly hit record. Everything was in place. As Donovan cleared his scratchy throat and began his long, boring presentation in a weak, wavering voice, I slipped out of the conference room like a shadow and headed for the VIP restroom on the top floor. I locked the stall door behind me and reverently pulled out my masterpiece, the nuke that carried all my hatred. It lay in my palm, a dormant cannon filled with destructive potential. I took a deep breath, recalling my grandfather's 4 principles of smoking his tobacco. Roll it loose, make sure it draws smooth, light it with an open flame, and pull hard. Fueled by unsatisfied childhood curiosity, by a volcanic hatred for that despicable couple, and by a sense of kamikaze determination, I took out my lighter, brought it to the end of the nuke, and set it ablaze. Whoosh! The blue flame greedily licked the dark brown leaves. A cloud of smoke so thick it was almost choking, so pungent it made my eyes water, billowed upwards. Without a moment's hesitation, I put the other into my lips and took an epic, bottomless, ferocious drag straight to the lungs. Boom! In that instant, I felt the top of my head get blown clean off by cannonball. A stream of hot, spicy, impossibly wild air, laced with the scent of earth, the fury of the sun, and the richness of aged tobacco, crashed through my lungs like a prehistoric beast, then shot straight up my windpipe and into my brain. My mind went completely blank. Stars exploded behind my eyes, the world spun, and a loud ringing filled my ears. My knees buckled, and I nearly collapsed onto the cold tile floor. This stuff is insane. I clung to the stall wall, bent over, gasping for air, coughing so hard my lungs burned, tears and snot streaming down my face. I felt like my very soul was about to be blasted out of my body by the sheer force of it. It took me a full minute to recover from the dizzying vertigo. Not enough. The dose isn't high enough. He needs the full experience. I gritted my teeth, brought the smoldering nuke back to my lips, closed my eyes, and took a second, even harder pull. This time, the dizziness was worse, and my stomach churned, a wave of nausea rising in my throat. For a second, I thought I could see my grandpa waving at me from the great beyond. I held the nuke under the faucet, extinguishing it completely. The massive, soggy thing let out a final, resentful wisp of smoke. I carefully wrapped it in layers of paper towels, tucked it away, and then, holding the wall for support, I stumbled back to the conference room. As I reached the door, the scene inside stopped me in my tracks. The room was in total chaos. The shrieks of female colleagues, shouts from the men, and the frantic chatter of security radios blended into a symphony of mayhem. A crowd had gathered around the stage. The chairman's face was as black as thunder as he roared at his assistant. I casually walked back to my seat, picked up my phone, and stopped the recording. I played back the video, and what I saw almost made me howl with laughter. The video started with Donovan at the podium, pointing to a soaring performance chart on the screen, smugly boasting about his glorious achievements. Then, at the exact moment I took my first hit of the nuke, his body went rigid. His eyes bulged, blood vessels popping, as if he had just seen a ghost. He immediately began to convulse violently, like a fish thrown onto a hot skillet. His mouth gaped open, a horrible croaking sound escaping his throat, unable to form words. The next second, as I took my second hit, a thick white foam erupted from his mouth. His entire body, stiff as a board, fell backward like a felled tree, hitting the stage with a loud thud. His limbs continued to jerk rhythmically and uncontrollably, like a malfunctioning dancer on an arcade machine. The scene was more spectacular, more thrilling, and more deeply, deeply satisfying than any B-horror movie I had ever seen. Those 2 drags had nearly sent me to heaven. For him, with a tenfold supersized dose, he had probably been blasted straight to hell to check in with the devil himself. Donovan was rushed out by paramedics that day and taken directly to the ICU at City General. The hospital convened a panel of specialists who ultimately concluded that his condition was a result of long-term, excessive smoking, drinking, sleep deprivation, and overindulgence. This had led to a systemic multi-organ dysfunction, triggering an acute epileptic seizure and neurological damage. The doctors sternly warned his family that he was in critical condition and needed absolute rest, free from any and all forms of stimulation. or he could drop dead at any moment. The next day, I showed up at the hospital's ICU visiting area, carrying a basket of fresh fruit and whistling a cheerful tune. Through the thick glass, I saw Donovan on the bed, with Chloe standing vigil beside him. Chloe's eyes were red and swollen from crying. When she saw me, her expression filled with a bone-deep terror and hatred, as if I were a demon crawled up from the pits of hell. Donovan, on the hospital bed, was wearing an oxygen mask, hooked up to a dozen machines, his face the color of a used paper towel. He lay there lifelessly, a corpse waiting for burial. I smiled brightly at the glass partition. Then, right in front of them, I slowly, deliberately pulled out the damn twice-used nuke. I held it up for them to see. "Hey, buddy, look at this thing," I mouthed silently. Got a little nervous during the meeting yesterday. Couldn't help myself. Took a couple of puffs. Man, this thing is strong. I was thinking, can't let good stuff go to waste. I'm meeting some friends tonight. We're gonna pull an all-nighter at a karaoke bar, drink till dawn. Thought I'd bring this along so everyone can have a good time. On the other side of the glass, Donovan's eyes flew open, wide as saucers. For the first time, a violent emotion crossed his deathly pale face. Pure, absolute terror. The numbers on his monitor started jumping wildly, and an ear-splitting alarm began to blare. He ripped the oxygen mask from his face and, with every last bit of strength he possessed, struggled to sit up. His voice was a shredded mess as he roared at me through the glass, his words desperate and broken. "No, don't, Leo. I'm begging you. Please, just rest. Don't go out." I watched his dying theatrics, the smile on my face growing colder. It was time to lay my cards on the table. "Donovan," I mouthed, enunciating every word. "I know about your damn system. It gives you 10 times everything I get, right?" His expression shifted from shock to horror, and finally to complete and utter despair. I was wrong," he rasped, his voice trembling, thick with tears. "Leo, I was wrong. I'll give you all the money from the system. All of it. I'll split it with you. No, you can have it all. Just please let me go." I laughed, a sound full of mockery and triumph. "Money." I leaned in, pressing my face against the cold glass, staring directly into his eyes, and mouthed my reply. "What about my life? How are you going to pay me back for that?" He was speechless, his body shaking uncontrollably like a leaf in a hurricane. I straightened up, adjusted my collar like a victorious general leaving the battlefield, and delivered my final verdict. "Don't worry, my dear friend. We're going to take our time with this. I'm very interested to see what happens first in these last 90 days. Will I pleasure you to death, or will I party myself into an early grave?" Without another look at his face, now twisted into a mask of ultimate terror, I turned and walked away. Behind me, the ICU erupted with the piercing shriek of alarms, Chloe's hysterical screams, and the crash of medical equipment being knocked to the floor. I didn't look back. I walked out into the brilliant sunlight and let out a long, slow breath. I felt lighter and more liberated than ever before. Just as I stepped out of the hospital's main entrance, a cold, emotionless, purely mechanical voice echoed in my mind. "Warning, warning, host vital signs are under severe and irreversible threat. System core safety protocol triggered. Initiating mandatory unbinding sequence. Unbinding progress, 10%, 30%, 70%, 100%. Mandatory unbinding sequence complete. Link severed." As the voice faded, I felt an indescribable warmth flood my body, a vibrant, powerful energy surging through me. It was a long-lost feeling of strength that was entirely my own, as if all the life force the system had siphoned from me was now rushing back with interest. I let out a deep sigh of relief. I felt better than I had in years. But just in case, I was still cautious. This could be another one of the damn system's tricks. For the next week, I maintained my degenerate lifestyle. I smoked, I drank, I kept up a Project Liftoff, and even took it up a notch. A week later, I got the news. Donovan was out of the hospital and had returned to work, full of life. I drove by the office to see for myself. He looked great, healthy complexion, energetic, driving his flashy Porsche. It was as if the dying man in the ICU had been someone else entirely. It seemed the unbinding was real. As relief washed over me, I also felt a sense of resignation. I knew that with him back on his feet, My time at the company was over. Sure enough, that afternoon, I got a personal call from the HR director informing me that I was fired. The official reasons: chronic absenteeism, an extremely poor work ethic, and gross violation of company policy, which had negatively impacted the business. I didn't argue. I didn't fight it. I calmly accepted the outcome, packed up my few belongings, and left the place that had been both my rebirth and my near-second death. I didn't want to need to take him down with me. This life of mine, which I had fought so hard to get back, was too precious to waste. I left that city of painful memories and moved to a small, warm, coastal town down south. I found a chill, no-overtime programming job, rented an apartment with an ocean view, and started a new life that was truly my own. I stopped forcing myself to lift weights at the gym and instead took up jogging on the beach at sunset, breathing in the salty air and watching the magnificent colors paint the sky. I stopped eating bland health food and learned to cook for myself, exploring farmers markets and trying new recipes to treat myself. I quit smoking for good, but on a weekend night, I might meet up with new friends at a beachside bar for a couple of beers, talk about life, and sing along old songs. I began to enjoy life, to savor every simple, real day. The feeling of being in control of my own destiny was so grounding, so wonderful. The nightmarish experience left a deep scar. It no longer hurt, but the mark was still there. Occasionally, in the dead of night, I would dream of Donovan's twisted face or Chloe's cold eyes, but mostly, I chose to look forward. Time is the best medicine. Just as I had almost buried them completely in the recesses of my memory, something unexpected happened. About 3 months later, on a normal afternoon, I received a call from an unknown number. The area code was from a city I used to live in. I hesitated for a moment, then answered. A woman's frantic, desperate voice came through the line, a voice that was both familiar and strange. "Hello, is this Leo Hayes?" It was Chloe. Her voice was no longer gentle and sweet, nor was it shrill with panic. It was filled with a helpless, groveling desperation. "It is," I replied calmly, feeling no emotion at all. "Leo, please, can you lend me some money? 50,000. No, 30,000 would be enough. I'm begging you. You're the only one who can help me," she pleaded, her words tumbling out in a tearful mess. I was confused. She and Donovan had swindled millions from me. How could she be reduced to begging me, the victim, for a few tens of thousands? But I didn't care enough to ask. I just gave her a cold, blunt refusal. "I don't have any money. You're loaded. Go ask your husband, Donovan. Isn't he the brilliant, young business mogul?" The moment I said Donovan's name, Chloe on the other end of the line exploded like a lit powder keg. She started screaming like a madwoman, spewing the most vile, hateful curses I could imagine. "Donovan, fuck him and his entire family. That bastard. That son of a bitch. I hope he rots in hell. Why doesn't he just die?" She shrieked hysterically, as if Donovan had murdered her entire family. I was baffled by her sudden psychotic break, but had no desire to listen to it. I hung up and blocked her number. Though I was curious, I didn't give much thought. Whatever was happening between those two monsters was their problem. If they ended up killing each other, I'd be the first to applaud. A few days later, however, I found out the whole story from a former coworker I was still on good terms with. The truth was more bizarre and twisted than anything I had personally experienced. It turned out that at the exact moment the system forcibly unbound from me, a delayed but perfectly just sentence was handed down to Donovan. The so-called Symbiont AI multiplier system operated on a strange but fair law of conservation of energy. All the gifts it had bestowed upon Donovan had a hidden price tag. The cost of a forced unbinding was that all the ill-gotten positive gains were to be repaid tenfold, in a much crueler fashion. Over the past year, my bonuses, salary, and commissions had totaled around $100,000. The system had rewarded him with over $1 million in cash. The moment we were unbound, that $1 million in cash instantly transformed into a debt of over $10 million, appearing out of thin air. And this wasn't some simple bank loan. The debt was scattered across dozens of different, ruthless, high-interest loan shark operations. Even better, the life force I had painstakingly built up over the year, the energy he had siphoned off to fuel his decadent lifestyle, was now being called in. The unbinding had put his health on a high-interest loan, and the bill was due. The reason he looked healthy when he got out of the hospital was just the last flicker of a dying candle, a final rebound before total system collapse. In reality, his body's foundation was completely hollowed out. What goes around comes around, and Chloe, as his legal wife, was naturally on the hook for this astronomical sum as part of their marital debt. When Chloe learned the truth, she had a complete breakdown. She begged Donovan for a divorce, but that bastard, desperate for someone to share the burden, refused. He confiscated her ID and passport, even became physically abusive, threatening to break her legs if she tried to run. Chloe tried to sue for divorce, but legal battles involving such massive debts are incredibly complex and can drag on for years. The loan sharks were not willing to wait that long. And so began, according to my former colleague, a spectacular 3-month-long reality show at the office. Men from the loan companies started visiting Donovan and Chloe at work almost every day. They didn't hit or yell. They would just pull up a chair and sit silently outside Donovan's office or next to Chloe's desk. They were covered in tattoos, wore thick gold chains, and just stared blankly as Donovan and Chloe tried to work. When they went to lunch, the men followed. When they went to the bathroom, the men waited outside the door. The invisible pressure was enough to drive anyone insane. At first, upper management tried to protect their star talent, stepping in to mediate. But when they realized the debt was a bottomless pit, they cut their losses to protect the company's reputation. Finally, after one last dramatic confrontation, the company fired them both for severely disrupting the normal office environment and damaging the corporate image. My ex-co-worker said he would never forget the scene that afternoon. Donovan was dragged out of his luxurious office by several menacing, tattooed men like a sack of garbage. He was completely unhinged, his hair a mess, his expensive suit torn, his face covered in tears and snot. As he struggled wildly, he screamed at the top of his lungs, a desperate, gut-wrenching cry at the empty air. I take it back. I don't want to unbind. I was wrong. Please, bind me again. Bind me. I'm begging you. His agonizing wails echoed through the entire office floor, chilling everyone to the bone. But in this world, there are no second chances. Later, the rumor was that the couple had been taken away by the loan sharks. Some said they were sold to a scam compound in Southeast Asia, forced to use their sharp minds and pretty faces to generate value and pay off an endless debt. After that, they were never heard from again. After hanging up with my friend, I walked out onto my balcony overlooking the sea and lit a cigarette. It was the first and the last cigarette I chose to smoke in my new life. I didn't feel the ecstatic joy of revenge, nor any sense of malicious glee. My heart was as calm as the vast, open ocean before me, shimmering gold under the setting sun. Wicked people meet wicked ends. And me, I had already started my new life under a warm southern sun. I stubbed out the cigarette on the railing and tossed it in the trash. The sea breeze blew in, carrying the scent of freedom and a fresh start. I turned, went back inside, opened my laptop, and began to write the first line of code for my new project. This time, all the effort, all the sweat, all the intelligence and creativity would belong completely and entirely to me. My life was my own,